The Catalpa Tree, healing, drawing power, and southern wisdom. When I talk about land-based living, I'm not just talking about food and water. I'm talking about the trees, the plants, the roots, and the creatures that grow around us. Because every one of them carries a purpose. And one of the most overlooked trees in the South is the Catalpa tree. Down here in Mississippi and Louisiana, people call it the targa worm tree or the Catawba worm tree. It's the tree with the big heart-shaped leaves and the long bean-like pods. But the real value of this tree is not the pods. It's the medicine, the metaphysics, and the worms. My grandmother used the worms from this tree as fishing bait. And if you grew up in the rural South, you already know Catalpa worms are legendary. They draw fish the way abundance draws to wisdom. They are soft, oily, and irresistible to fish. And that's why old folks planted the tree. Not for shade, not for beauty, not for food. They planted it for worms. Now let's talk about the health benefits. Because this tree is more than bait. It's medicine. The leaves of the Catalpa tree were used in old Southern herbalism for the lungs. They help with asthma, bronchitis, coughs, and inflammation. People brew them as tea or crush them as poultices. The leaves act as a mild expectorant. They help the body release what's stuck. The bark was used as a gentle cleanser. It works as a laxative, an antiseptic, and a worm expeller. Old medical texts list catalpa bark as a remedy for intestinal worms and skin infection. It's not a modern herb, but it's a documented one. The flowers are calming. They were used for fevers, inflammation, and relaxation. They carry a cooling energy, a gentle sedative effect. Even the roots were used in some traditions for pain and swelling. Not common today, but historically real. Now let's talk about the metaphysical mechanics, because this is where the tree becomes powerful. Catalpa is a draw tree. Just like the worms draw fish, the tree itself symbolizes drawing in what you desire. In Hoodoo tradition, Catalpa was used for drawing money, drawing opportunity, drawing luck, drawing resources, drawing healing. The leaves draw out inflammation. The bark draws out infection. The worms draw fish. The tree draws abundance. Catalpa is not a food tree. It is a resource tree. It teaches you that abundance is not always something you eat. Sometimes abundance is something you use. And this fits perfectly with the economics I teach. People chase money, but they ignore wisdom. People chase income, but they ignore land. People chase jobs, but they ignore the resources growing right in front of them. The Catalpa tree is a reminder that abundance is not always financial. Sometimes abundance is medicinal. Sometimes abundance is metaphysical. Sometimes abundance is practical, like worms for fishing. Sometimes abundance is simply knowing what the land gives you. This tree grows in the same places people call poor. It grows in the same places people overlook. It grows in the same places people abandon. But it carries healing, drawing power, and practical value. That is abundance. That is wisdom. That is land literacy. And that is why I teach it. Not for superstition, not for folklore, not for entertainment. I teach it because the land is full of resources. And when you understand the land, you understand abundance. The Catalpa tree is one of those resources. A healing tree, a drought tree, a southern tree, a tree of wisdom, a tree of provision, a tree of heritage, and a tree that reminds us that abundance is already here if you know how to see it.